Technically it's independently tested, put it on the label, but it don't mean anything. And that is probably one of the big issues with that independently tested claim. Okay, we wanted to do a little teardown of key concepts in the supplement world today. I think in particular, you've heard of like greenwashing. Have you guys heard of greenwashing?
Is that like eco-friendly, or is that the organic stuff?
Most, Jake, do you know greenwashing?
Yeah, it's the idea that you're associating your brand with deep environmental values and then using that to kind of buy trust from the consumer.
Almost. It's that but counterfeit. Greenwashing is when you are saying, oh yeah, we're an eco-friendly brand and we've saved X amount of liters of water and we've saved 22,000 ducks or whatever. But then when you actually measure up to what like the claims that are being made, turns out not so green, right? So now, of course, like I'm sure everyone always has their special interest with that, and one side will say this is greenwashing and the other side won't. But greenwashing is a thing. So I'm trying to think up a term like transparency washing, fake transparency, pseudo transparency. There's this thing that supplement companies do where, as we'll dive into, they say these things that seem trust inspired or seem to inspire trust. But if you dig a little bit beneath the surface, there's not too much actual transparency there. So the first one I have for you guys is independently tested. Why do you think that is pseudo transparency?
Yeah, because a lot of brands control their independent testing, or they almost do it in-house, is what I have seemingly to have discovered recently. So kind of means not much.
Jake?
Yeah, well, it's like they can say it's independently tested, but then if they're not readily sharing who ran that test independently, then like how do we know?
Yeah, and the other part from independent tests is that every batch independent tests, like every supplement is independently tested. They are all independently tested for microbial and heavy metals. That's part of it. And that's what some of these companies do is they put out these independent tests. Like if they say they're transparent, they put out the test of the microbial and heavy metals. So yeah, technically it's independently tested, put it on the label, but it don't mean anything. And that is probably one of the big issues with that independently tested claim. So what do you guys think? Like we've developed a solution to it, but like, what do you guys think needs to happen from the independent tested perspective, that claim?
Well, I think there should just be a better, probably like a governing body who actually does the independent testing. And I think we had actually listened to a podcast, and there is a startup that is doing that, which was quite interesting to hear. But I really think that's a great idea, and that business will probably be quite successful with that. But that's my thought on it.
Yeah, agreed. I think yeah, to Carlos's point, and this actually stands to be solved for supplements specifically. Are you saying, sorry, Carlos, that company was specifically for supplements?
I think it's just like CPG consumables in general. So like, I mean, we have what we're going to do as our solution, but there isn't a governing body that holds all companies in place. We're just doing our own due diligence and want to hold ourselves to a higher standard to bring that to our customers so they know they can actually trust us. And it is a legitimate like third party test and not schmudged, you could say.
Yeah. Not like, I mean, you call it independent testing, but if it's, if you're paying your cousin Sal to run the test, then it's not so independent.
That's what Life Labs is Light Labs is intending to be, is that trusted source. There's another great company that I think is doing a good thing. I think Mark Cuban invested in them. They're called Open Door or like Open Lab Door or something or other. And what they do is they take supplements and then test them and then show the results. And then they're a marketing play because, they list these sites and they're like a retailer, but they're like a transparency retailer, which I think is smart. It doesn't fully get all the way to the bottom of the issue, but it is, I think, a good kind of indication of the trend and where things are going. And the real solution like that we cooked up on our own was like, yeah, like we can, like it would be very easy for a company to get in an independent test, not have a great result, and then just bury the results, right? And just never show anyone anything. And that's what you see. Like, you look at a bottle, it says independently tested. It's like, great, I will just trust you, I guess. That's the case. But what we're doing, and this is our promise, this is our brand promise, is that we're going to also just attach the lab results so you can judge and see for yourself. And obviously, we're not going to be, if we don't get a lab result we like, then we're not going to be incentivized at all to put that out there. I don't think customers are going to be very happy if we're like, yeah, we're all about transparency. And then we just like, there's one batch we don't like the result of. So we're like, yeah, let's just not include that.
Well, that's the other important piece, is that we're sharing testing for each batch as well, as opposed to like many companies will just slap on like independently tested once when it was tested, and then not test again, right? So they do it once at the beginning, and then never again, and then just say, oh, it's good. What's important for what we're doing is testing every batch.
Yeah, and
it's pricey.
It is pricey, and we can like break down those costs. So, for example, on our magnesium, if you wanted to just verify the microbial and heavy metal, it might be about $200 a test, or like around there, like $150 to $200 depending. But the testing that we are doing on our batches is like an additional $600 to verify the purity, which is that NMR test that we're getting, plus another like $200 to verify the actual amount of magnesium is in it. And then we'll do the microbial and heavy metal test. And there's also the time associated with that and everything like that. So those are the actual steps that we go through to verify what's happening. And I don't, again, it may be these other supplement companies do this, but they don't talk about it and they don't share it. If you did it, why wouldn't you share it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just seems like a no-brainer. Why would you not? If you had nothing to hide, why would you not share that? So the opposite of that is a tell.
You see it as like our QA, quality assurance and quality control process, is actually our marketing, right? So when we're instead of like investing in like, I don't know, a wrap for your car, Jake, we're going to invest in the testing. And that is the market.
You might still invest in a wrap for my car. Right?
We'll see. We got to talk to our accountant friends to see if we can justify that. But you know what I mean? That's the marketing, is like the QA QC process, and we're just going to share it. We're just going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the next claim teardown, which is third-party verified test. Now, I've walked you guys into it with the independently tested, but why are we tearing down third-party verified?
This is all schmuckery, man. That's why. You tell me. The third-party testing can also just be, like, people would just refer to the COA, would they not, and say that's a third-party test?
Well, the third-party, yeah, like, I think that might be, like, it wouldn't be a test, but independently tested and third-party tested.
Kind of same thing.
Like, roughly, yeah. Right? Like, if you got one party, which is the brand, another party, which is the co-manufacturer, the third party is the testing lab. Well, again, you're still going through the microbial and heavy metal test. It's a third party test, and it's not like you're already doing that. So some marketing person just went and said, "Do we third party test?" The production person said, "Yes, we do." Perfect. Slap it on the label.
Yeah. Let's talk about Well, I want to talk more, maybe not right now, but I definitely want to talk more about the label, because that's what I found really interesting, especially in the early days, like what people put on the label in terms of like claims or ingredients and things not matching what they really are. But maybe that's for a little bit later.
What bone do you have to pick, Carlos? Pick it.
Okay, well, the bone I have to pick is how the front of the label and the like that ingredient or that product never, or I shouldn't say never, but rarely matches up perfectly with what's on the back. And it's funny because it comes to that old like thing that, I don't know, my mom used to say, but it's like, oh, if you look at the ingredients and there's a bunch of them and there's a bunch that you can't pronounce, it's like it's probably not good, which for different areas, maybe not the case, because some things have, like, you could say the scientific or like molecular name that's going to be a lot harder to read and understand for most people. But like when you look at a supplement label and like our first product is bisglycinate and you look at the back, like that's all it really should say. But there's so many other competitors there where the front of the label says, oh, mag bisglycinate. And then you look at the back and it's got a laundry list.
It says
Yeah, and it says pure too, which is crazy because then you look at the back and it's got 5 other different types of magnesium in it. So it's like, well, that's not really the case.
yeah, and I think the other one too is the games that are played with like the amount of magnesium and what people kind of misunderstand about magnesium in that way, which is that there's an effective there's the dose of magnesium, and then there's the effective dose of bisglycinate, and those are different things. And then there's the overall amount of magnesium powder that is that you have in the capsule, and that's a different thing. So people will kind of play games with that to make themselves appear, more as if they have more stuff than they.
Well, yeah, you're talking the elemental like magnesium content, like that can be up and as high as like 900, which I've seen a bottle
they'll
or two.
say magnesium, there's 900 milligrams of magnesium, but the elemental magnesiums would be more like 100 to 200 because that's all that's possible.
Yeah, which is, pretty misleading for a consumer when they see that big of a number on the front of a bottle, be like, oh my God, this has got so much more, but it's a totally different measurement of what's actually in there.
Well, if you don't know anything about supplements or magnesium and how that works, you look at the one that has more magnesium and be like, oh, that's a better value. It's like, it just seems that way, right? Jake, what kind of grapes do you have? What bones do you have to pick?
Well, yeah, I think maybe to wrap up the conversation around like the misunderstood term third-party testing. I think it sounds great until you realize that like some companies just test one batch and slap it on a label forever. Right. And I think so like for us, I think transparency means like showing your receipts and doing that consistently. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, that's what we'll be doing. Now, the last term, GMP or CGMP. Now, why is that something we're tearing down?
Well, that's just more about the production plan or the manufacturing plan.
Yeah.
And so is that actually like certified and clean? It really doesn't have to do much with like that finished product other than it's like meeting these baseline manufacturing principles.
Yeah. GMP. So GMP.
Yeah, like basically just means there's like not like rats running across the table when you're, putting the stuff in the capsule, right?
No, there are principles to it, but I don't know. It seems like every manufacturer we've worked with are all GMP, or inquired into. They all are GMP certified, right? Or CGMP. And so if everyone is GMP certified, then there's not really any bar or discretion between like this is like literally a good manufacturing practice and this isn't. Because again, it's just like independently tested. Like they're all independently tested. So if you just put it on the bottle, it doesn't mean anything.
I think it's like a baseline certification. I feel like when I was reading Health Canada's docs, which were just like super, super exciting, it was like if you want to manufacture, you just need to be GMP certified. So it's like you want to drive a car, you have to have a driver's license. But it's like, Max Verstappen, that guy's got a driver's license and he's probably better than most drivers. Arguably not better than me at go-karts, but like he'd be close.
Yeah, but I'm gonna try to work within your analogy there, Carlos. I don't think I'll be able to.
It's like, okay. I'm big brain.
Yeah, so like GMP, like I said, I think like 90%, at least I haven't come across a manufacturer so far that is not GMP certified. Yeah. They're all GMP certified. So you're right. It's like a bar to like go over, but it's like a 1 foot bar that like most people can step over, right? And it clearly didn't catch the issue with our first batch. And that's because the GMP certification is more about staying organized and tracking everything that comes in. So it's like knowing that we have this batch and this sample and it has the associated paperwork with it. And then when it goes out, it has this paperwork that's associated. So like everything is traceable and everything's clean, all those things. So those are like the key components, which is like great. That's good. But it doesn't validate the purity of the capsule, right? So you're going to see GMP certified on all sorts of bottles and all sorts of things. And that's awesome. That's good. Like, they stepped over the 1 foot bar, but it doesn't mean anything about purity or about the quality assurance and quality control process that are applied by the brand, because that's completely outside of that realm. It's entirely possible if we wanted to repeat our batch 1 scenario, we go to a bunch of different manufacturers that we've already talked to and say, whip us up some 200 milligram pure bisglycinate, give us the COA for it, we'll market it that way forever. And there's nothing that the GMP certified manufacturer would do to catch it, and it would never be exposed to anyone. That is incorrect.
Yeah, which is crazy. Well, companies are doing it, so it hasn't been exposed, and companies have been doing it for a long time already.
Carlos, you listen, and this had me think a lot about, you listened to the MrBeast My First Million podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and have you had a chance to listen to that, Jake?
I haven't heard that one.
Oh, it's very good. It's very good. MrBeast, I did not know this about the guy, but he's attacking the chocolate manufacturers. And did you know that, Jake?
Yeah, I've heard of this. What is it?
Carlos, fill us in. I think you probably know that better.
So Jimmy, aka MrBeast, YouTube guy, he has a bone to pick with the chocolate industry. And one of the things that he has a bone to pick with is that most of these massive companies that are kind of have market share of the chocolate industry, one, they use a lot of child labor to farm the cocoa beans, right? Cocoa for chocolate. And so he sort of tried to figure a way to insert himself in this supply chain. But one of the interesting things that he talked about in the podcast was he was talking with one of the head ops guys at I think it's Kellogg or something. I mean, maybe we shouldn't name names, but listen to the podcast. And the guy was like, oh, it's not possible. And Jimmy was like,
to do it without child labor.
The guy literally said it's not possible to do without child labor. And MrBeast was like, well, that's kind of fucked. And sure enough, he figured out a way to do it, and he's incentivizing the farmers, incentivizing the manufacturers, paying them better. And so he has a little bit less of a margin, I think, is the big thing, but still more than enough to scale his chocolate company. It's massive and it's doing super, super well.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
What stood out to me was that he was just saying that these executives of these huge chocolate companies, big chocolate.
Big chocolate, yeah.
Big chocolate.
Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka, man.
Yeah,
that guy's bad news. He's got those Oompa Loompas doing some bad stuff.
So if you take away nothing else from this pod, it's that fuck Willy Wonka, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Willy Wonka.
I don't know where to go from there, Carlos, but the main
thing... No, go on. You were talking about the...
Well, that's just it's status quo. And everyone in the industry was I think he said to the chocolate executive, and we're okay with this? We're okay
totally.
with child labor just being the status quo? And they're like, yeah, it's just kind of part of it, right? And it's kind of feeling the same way here. It's and we're okay with just not fully knowing what's in our supplements? That is, I think, what we're trying to do here, which is let's kind of make sure that what's been going on all this time, and maybe wasn't possible from a technology perspective. Because if these companies are 30, 40 years old, and maybe the internet wasn't around, maybe it wasn't super easy to have an NFC tag and pop it directly to your phone and have all that tracked. That experience probably wasn't possible 30, 40 years ago when a lot of these supplement companies started. But it is now. And so, let's change that standard. Let's have that be a bit better. Now, let's talk about... The boomers
got to evolve.
Let's talk about what supplements you guys are taking, what you're finding enjoyable, not yet Arrow supplements, but where are you wanting us to grow into in terms of supplements that you're taking, and what are you finding beneficial about them?
Okay. Jake, well, you've started recently my most favorite supplement that I would die for. Started taking creatine at 15 when I first started working out. And it's the only supplement I've been taking ever since consistently. I don't think I've really ever stopped. Maybe I run out and just buy a bottle a couple weeks later, but for 10 years plus, Yeah, what have you been noticing on it?
But you have crippling kidney disease, right, Carlos?
Yeah, well, don't get the fake news out there because that's a load of poo. It's a crock of shit. But yeah, I got into it for the strength sort of performance side of things. But what the literature's showing now is there's a lot of cognitive benefits as well as like neuroprotective benefits. So, but I'm curious, Jake, like what got you into taking it? Because Carlos at 15 was like, I just want to be jacked.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, Jake
so
at this age still wants to be a jacked.
less so what and more so who. Dr. Rhonda Patrick released a podcast recently. She had
Big fans of Dr. Ron.
yeah, we
Big
love
fan.
Dr.
We
Rhonda.
got to get her on this pod, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Rhonda.
Dr.
Get
Ron,
her
if
on
you're
the pod.
listening, if you care about transparent supplements, and maybe you're unaware at this point, then we'd love to have you on the pod. We'd love to talk with you.
Yeah. Yeah, in case anyone hears this, if you know Dr. Rhonda, we would love to have her on the pod.
Also, she has a lot of love for Canadians because the creatine researcher guy on that episode, University of Regina, the other guy she was talking about, U of A. So, I don't know. Maybe she seems to be a fan of people north of the border.
Yeah. Anyways, creatine. Big, I think it's a big misnomer that, like, you know, the singular use and purpose is to get swole, as the kids might say.
I don't know.
Like Carlos has identified,
Those kids are 22 now. Go on.
yeah, like Carlos was saying, I think for me it was just like even beyond the neuroprotective benefits, it's like very well studied, and there's so much upside that I think you're leaving too much on the table not to be taking creatine. One like challenge that I think when we do creatine ourselves, which we're going to do, and we've talked about it, is like communicating those benefits beyond, you know, performance benefits for strength training. In particular, like women, like the data are showing that women should be taking creatine for health span, for lifespan, but there's sort of a large pushback, right? And you know, women tend to want to stay away from things that they think will get them big. So that's something that I think needs to be solved, and I'd love if we could take a crack at that.
The big one for me around that was, I think it was postmenopausal women and like bone loss, helping with bone loss. That was a huge one that I never thought of before, and I thought that was great. Jake got me fired up about creatine. I, like you, Carlos, took creatine when I was younger for performance reasons, but then I stopped after playing hockey. But since Jake's all fired up about it and accidentally left some creatine monohydrate sitting around my house, I've been...
That was intentional. I actually just buy creatine whenever I see it, and I leave it in different places. I'm kind of like a squirrel for creatine. Like, I just like to have it around me so that I can have it readily available. Keep it in my car, keep it at home, keep it at the park down the street. It's just everywhere.
But I've been crushing creatine. I've been probably between 10 to 20 grams a day. Carlos, what's your dosage?
Wow, you're freaking hammering. I just do 5 every day.
Have you listened
5 grams.
You gotta listen to the Rhonda pod. The guy, the researcher, I think he said he takes 25 a day.
No, I think it's 15. 15 to 20.
Yeah, so I'm around there.
Interesting, because I've heard from people and pods, like reputable people, that it's like sort of a diminishing returns thing, where it's like
you end up with expensive pee, but what he was saying is that like that's the worst you end up with. You just piss it out.
Right.
And in particular, what he discussed though is that you really want to make sure you are saturated such that once it gets through the muscles, gets into the bone, from the bone to the brain. And so the additional saturation isn't a bad thing.
That is
so
like
a trickle down effect.
To be clear, though, that was kind of like a hypothetical thing. Like that was more him kind of reaching towards like maybe this is a potential, but like there isn't a ton of data to support that specifically. So that was more of like a hopeful recommendation based on him being a researcher for a really long time, right?
Well, the other reason I think we had this conversation in text though is like, Jake, you are a vegan, so getting creatine is probably more challenging for you in your everyday diet.
Yeah, and that's why, like, again, I noticed it right away. I think it's kind of well understood that if you're vegan and you take creatine, you'll notice it right away, which I did. And yeah,
which is crazy. You feel that shit. Get on it.
Yeah.
What else are you just on creatine and magnesium, Carlos? What are your sups?
No, creatine, the other one that I've been taking quite regularly, I think actually thinking back, the reason I got on it was because I needed something that tasted good to mix my creatine with to drink because I always take it in a powder. And originally I was doing BCAAs, but I've always kind of thought they were just hokey pokey, and who knows, but they seem hokey pokey to me. The literature to me isn't very convincing, but I probably could be convinced if I saw something good. But I switched to glutamine, just L-glutamine in a powdered flavor form. And I've always sort of also like had a bit of like IBS. And so when I was hearing a bit more of like how it is good like for digestion and like your sort of stomach health, because originally it was just like sort of a recovery thing is kind of how I knew a bit more about it, was like, oh, it's good for performance recovery. And then when it started switching to like, yeah, not only that, it's really good for gut health, I got on it. And I don't know, I haven't, I wouldn't say like I've noticed anything overly wild about being on it, but I know my girlfriend likes it because she finds it helps with her sort of like regularity. And I think we all kind of know someone like that in a sense. But yeah, I'll probably take it consistently for the ongoing future.
I love glutamine for that. Like I find it helps my stomach. I don't have many stomach issues, but I find that it definitely helps. And everyone talks about gut health, brain gut connection, blah blah blah. So it's good to do that. And yeah, it's a crucial part of muscle recovery as well. So I mean, I'm taking glutamine regularly. Jake, you're not yet.
Yeah, how much glutamine are you taking?
How much are you taking? You're taking a scoop, right, Carlos? 7 scoops?
Yeah, I think it's like 5 grams. I could be totally wrong though. I actually can't remember what the dose is. I just do 1 scoop.
Yeah.
Actually, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I actually have a problem with drinking like enough water and staying hydrated. So the scoop is flavored. So I probably actually end up having like at least two, probably more like 3 or 4 every day. So I'm getting a lot of gluten.
Yeah.
Tastes good.
Not bad for you. Not bad for you. I
So
also take zinc, but I look at it every day and I really ask myself if it's actually zinc,
mm,
despite it being from a quote unquote reputable brand. The other one
yeah,
is vitamin D. I'm not taking it as much in the summer. Again, I'm just hoping. I would love to verify it somehow, but I'm just hoping. And omega 3. That's another one I'm super excited for us to like dig into and like get really nerdy about, because like there's all sorts of stuff you hear. And I don't know
yeah.
yet enough, but it's like, have I been just taking rancid fish oil that actually has no impact on my life? Maybe we will find out. But like those are kind of like the ones that I like to take regularly. Anything else, Carlos, Jake?
That's why, like for omega 3, like I go to mussels and oysters because it is like a proven source, right?
I thought you supplemented with omegas though, or no?
Madison,
No,
Oh, okay.
she's got the vegan DHA, which is a brand and
Right.
company like. Um, I would. I wish that they were transparent because I like what they're doing. I think we met the
Mm.
founder. We didn't meet. Yeah, we did meet the founder
DHFA, right?
last year, so that was cool. So
What else you
okay,
take, Jake? Is that it?
yeah, I think that's pretty much it. 12, and that's it. Yeah.